Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to part 2 of Growth House with our special guest, Brian Barnes, head coach of Waterford Kettering High School. Brian Barnes, football coach. Make sure to include all that information right there. So if you're tuning in after part 1, we're just going to keep it going. I have a question for you. What coaches or players or motivational speakers do you look to, or were you inspired by, that kind of made you want to get into it? And then once you studied it, you learned, oh, this guy's actually, like smarter than he puts on, or whatever about it.
That's a great question. So, I think for my entire career out of high school, in my mind, I thought I would be in this kind of role. You know what I mean? Like a coach or a mentor, or even a high school counselor. That's even still in the back of my mind, even at 45 years old, because I tell people all the time, like, I don't know what I'm going to be when I get older, right? So when kids ask me, like, so there's still a lot to that. But so I've always had a passion for helping people and talking about this stuff. And so last May, May of 2023, my wife and I had an opportunity to go down to Nashville. I was right around our anniversary so I could go to a John Gordon conference. And John Gordon is a motivational speaker. He's an author, Amazon best. I mean, he's incredible, and I've read some of his stuff, and some of it's life-changing. I highly recommend it. And so at this conference, I had a chance to meet him, but I had a chance to meet some other people there as well. And the one person I was recommended to talk to is by the name of Chip Baker, and he's out of Texas. And he and I had a couple phone conversations, and he took interest in me. And he's also a best-selling author and motivational speaker. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm going to do this. And this is pretty cool. Like, he was invested, like, when I told him kind of like what my message was and my passion was, he's like, that's something pretty cool. And so he motivated me. And now to the point where just recently he asked me to write an excerpt for his next book about dealing with adversity.
Oh, wow.
So overcoming adversity and kind of thriving and stuff. So that's a pretty cool thing. If you want to hear about that, I won't give it all away, but it's a pretty neat story. I think about that. And so, yeah, that just kind of got the wheels turning a little bit. And then with some other friends that talking to, they say, why don't you just start an LLC and see where it goes? And I'm like, All right, I'm going to do that. And so, yeah, a couple months later, sometimes I think like anything, like, oh, I wish I was farther along, right? But I mean, it hasn't even been a year in this project. And so I recognize where I'm at and like, okay, no, I'm feeling pretty good.
That's great. Yeah. We talk about that a lot on this podcast. And, we were talking, you addressed something, too, that we get into a lot about when you're on the path, how to, like, ignore not having the goal and how to kind of stay steadfast on it and just live that life as opposed to struggle with it. So, I mean, you're in the right house.
Yes.
One play at a time, right?
One play at a time.
That's
not the outcome.
A lot of healing going on right now.
Isn't that crazy how it just crosses through every boundary?
100%.
He taught me early in my career, it's just win the day. It's just win the day. You cannot do 20 million this year today or in January or in February. And every year out of the gate, me and him, I mean, we're crazy. And really getting to try hard these last couple of years. I've had a hard time at the beginning of the year, just because you're so ramped,
Like,
yeah, like,
really
no,
pumped to
dude.
get going.
But but then you got to stick it out in August, and then in November,
How do you, having multiple good things, right? How do you handle those, right? How do you divide your time? How do you, the adversity that comes with it? Yeah, like, how do you do it?
Like anything, if you believe in what you're doing, like, I have a section in one of my presentations, about leading a purpose-driven life, right? And so when you have purpose, you find a way.
Sure.
And I'm busy. I have 3 teenage daughters, right? I coach, I teach. I'm doing this stuff with our business. At one point, I was in charge of the girls' flag football program at Bishop Foley, and you might have seen that on the news or with the Lions and stuff like that. So, there's a lot going on. And like I said, like anything, though, if you believe in what you're doing, you find that purpose, you're going to find a way to do it.
So, and if you obviously in dead on, gotta have the belief, but I mean, does it come down to structure in your day? Does, are you more a feel guy that, hey, I'm going to do this and that? Like, how do you control that beast?
It's funny.
It's a beast.
I think I do better when I'm not as structured. And I know that might sound crazy, but I like to just kind of roll with it and,
I love it.
Go. Yeah, it's funny. I remember, being a substitute teacher and working for some of my teaching friends and always being like, how is your desk so messy, right? And I couldn't believe how, and then now as a teacher, though, and I only teach health, but, like, my desk is kind of all over the place. But I think It's just who I am,
Okay.
and I like to go.
So it's
and
in your offense too, though, a little bit,
a
right?
little
Like,
bit.
yeah, like
it's
little
just kind
more
of my
instinct.
yeah,
Okay.
just my personality is I'm
Interesting.
just kind of a get after it and let's go. And
Is
yeah.
there anything that you bring to health class from football and vice versa? Like, do they teach each other? Do they, help fill the voids in each other or anything?
What
like
I
that?
love about teaching health is, and I've taught high school English before, which is a little bit more challenging, even though I enjoyed it. But what I like about health is you're talking about real world stuff that kids can gravitate to immediately, and they recognize that it impacts them immediately. Whether it be their diet or alcohol and drugs or sexual behaviors, things like that. Those are all things that impact them, and that's
and
an
they're
easy.
as loud as they're gonna ever be.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
right then.
You're right. Yes. Yeah. So that's a definite. One of the cool things I do in health, and I did this teaching English. I'm going to do it anytime I'm in the classroom. Is every Friday I actually read from a book called "Stay Positive" from John Gordon, and I read a quick excerpt, and I have the kids think about it, reflect on it. So. Pretty cool thing every Friday. That's what I do. Yeah.
Fist bump Friday.
Fist bump Friday. That's a real thing. I stand at the front door every Friday, and I fist bump every kid that walks through the door. So I just
awesome, man.
acknowledge them. And
Dude, a lot of kids don't have a positive person.
Correct.
Asking them how they're doing and keeping an eye on them.
yeah.
It means
So
a lot, for sure.
So going back to John Gordon. His book that really got me to be a fan of his is called The Energy Bus, and it's a little cheesy, but
You read that one?
Yeah,
No, it's good.
Fantastic read.
Really
and there's
good one.
There's a part of the book where they talk about more people die Monday morning at 9 a.m. than any other day or time of the week, right? It's because the theory is that they're so unhappy going to work, and so I thought of that like as an educator, like, okay, if I feel that way on Monday mornings, how is that 14, 15-year-old kid gonna feel? So I got to make sure on Mondays like I'm on point, right? So I took that as like a challenge, like, no, I'm gonna be ready to make sure I can have a positive impact on these kids, and I stressed the kids and I stressed everybody in the school, like, you don't realize how much of an impact you can make on others just simply by saying hi to them, simply by giving a fist bump to them. And another story I give, and I talk about that in my presentation, this is a recent one. This is about a month and a half ago. The power of social media. I reached out to a guy I graduated high school with, just wished him happy birthday. Haven't talked to him in 20-some years, or whatever. And he responded to me by thanking me. And then he said, hey, I want you to know I never forgot the time you took me aside to teach me how to throw a baseball. Because he was trying out for baseball and wasn't the greatest athlete. Now he's a doctor down south somewhere. And I just that's a moment that stuck with me, right? Like, how powerful is that if everybody realized how they can influence somebody just by doing something simple as that. 20-some years later, this guy remembered that. That's awesome, gave me chills just thinking about it.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
You should be a football coach and work with children and motivate them to be better people.
That's right.
It might be a good career path for you.
I have a question. So, as an experienced coach, right? Who's harder to coach, a talented player or someone who lacks the talent?
Oh, I definitely think it's easier to coach someone who lacks the talent, because I think I look at them like me, right? Like, I didn't have a long coaching pedigree. Like, I didn't play college football, right? Everything we've done and I've done, it's just based on sweat equity, right? Working hard and spending the time and putting in the hours. I do a better job coaching those kids than I do the uberly talented kid. Now, if the uberly talented kid is still one of those, hey, he's going to work hard, he doesn't have an ego and things like that, like, those are the best, right? When you get those type of players. But if it's an overly talented player who doesn't put in the effort, doesn't put in the work, and isn't going to do it, I would take the kid with a chip on his shoulder.
How do you handle that guy, right? Because I mean, man, I going back 100 years ago, but yeah, a lot of athletes like that, right? Like, the ego gets involved, all that, but as a coach, and I know it's not here at your new program, but we were talking the importance of the quarterback. What if that's the guy? How would you as a coach get that guy to buy in, right?
Yeah, I mean, going back to it, going back to those things I believe in, those standards I believe in, like, here's who we are, here's how we practice, here's how we do things, and if you can't fit in, like I've lost a lot of games too. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've won a lot of games, I've lost a lot of games. We'll do it without you. So
love it.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
like,
just
definitely,
that clear.
It's just like, here's who we are, here's our expectations, and either you buy in or you don't.
Gotcha.
Right? And like I said, at the end of the day, like, I'm proud of where my career has gone, and if it doesn't work out because I'm not going to give in to some
Sure.
16-year-old kid
Yeah.
with an ego, then so be it.
Yeah, and you'd really be doing them the injustice,
You
right?
would be. Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Because life
Life
likely
lesson.
outside the
Absolutely.
football field isn't going to be like that,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Got it. The kid that doesn't have the ego, right? The talented kid. What do you do with him?
I think that's,
Right.
in a way, the challenging part there is getting them to believe that they can do something special. So the great thing about football, and this is any sport, but especially football, is like you can go to the weight room and make yourself into a chiseled dude, right? Just by simply working hard and busting your tail and getting faster and get on the field. Like that's a great thing about football. And I tell our kids this all the time. It's not my team or my program, it's yours, right? Like who controls playing time? Like you do. Like put us in a position to play you. Like that's a great thing going back to the be your own hero stuff is you have the ability to control your narrative, right? And so that's something but they have to believe that, right?
Sure.
We can't do it for you. You got to believe it.
What about the kid that comes to you and says, "Hey, Coach Bry, I want to play college football," right? And you can obviously as a coach see a little, further down the line and having the potential. Do you handle that kid any differently? I mean, do you, seeing that he has the aspiration, seeing that he's humble, how do you deal with that guy?
I give kids I give them the tools to what's necessary to play at the next level. Things that I've learned. So like, okay, so it's important that college coaches want to see you on campus. Like they want to see you go to their camp. Okay, they want to evaluate you in person that way. You got to keep your grades up, and you got to apply to schools, right? And then so at the end of the day, every level does have certain measurables, right, that they abide by to play at the Division One level on down. Okay, if being as transparent, keep it real as possible. If you're 5'8" and you run a 4.9 40, chances are you're not going to play running back at Michigan, right? Okay, so we just keep it right. So we keep it real like that. But there are a lot of other opportunities, playing college football somewhere for you. You just got to be willing to put up the work. One of my former assistant coaches came up and coached with us at Bishop Foley. He played at Hillsdale College. He's from Texas.
Okay.
Right. So I mean, if you want it bad enough, there's a means and there's a way to do
And what could that kid be doing right now? Him or her, right, listening and wanting to go that next level, like you said, like the commitment to your body and these things that can be done. What would you tell that boy or girl right now, that wants to play D1, D2, D3?
Yeah.
How do I get out there and do it? How do I expose myself to these opportunities?
So,
you mentioned camp. But...
So I did. So I tell kids, and I just did it as recently as last week with our new guys, like pick out 3 or 4 Division I, Division II, Division III, and NAIA schools that you think maybe you could see yourself at, right? And every one of those schools now has a recruiting form that you can go fill out, right? A questionnaire, and you can fill that out and get your name out there. They'll start sending you camp information, their junior day information, their visit day information, things like that. That way, at least you're on their radar. And that's an easy one right there. Start right there, and then you pick it and choose the camps you want to go to. One of our kids at Bishop Foley, he's a junior. He's going to be a senior. He's getting a lot of looks from Ivy League schools, right? So he filled out some questionnaires, and now they're and their coaches follow him on Twitter. And so
how about the whole Instagram thing, man? Do I need a highlight reel?
It's funny. Like Twitter and social media has been pretty big. Like with that, Twitter DMs and things like that for recruiting and building relationships with colleges and. Yeah.
And is that on the athlete directly?
I think so. Like I think to a degree, like going back to it, like the coach plays a part in it, but so does the player.
Sure.
Yeah, so does the player, and making sure the grades are up, making sure you're talking to your counselor, so you're taking the proper courses, right, and things like that to be eligible for when you graduate high school, things like that. So a little bit of both.
I love it.
You're spending a lot of time with these kids, obviously. How are they dealing with the social media realm? How do you describe how their output is living in this world where everything's broadcast for them,
And your family too.
I know.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So it's funny. We just got back from Traverse City, and my middle daughter, we love her. Like we went up to one of the peninsulas up there and took some pictures of the lake, which was frozen, and she was talking about how she has to get the right aesthetic for Instagram. and I was just like, oh my God, right? So I just remind them it's not really reality, right? Take it for what it is. It's Instagram and it's okay, and just be smart on there, especially who you talk to and things like that. And that's the hard part.
Yeah,
'cause
the safety part.
The safety part is the scary part. Yeah.
When did you start coaching?
So I got out of high school in 1996. Got involved right away at the youth level. Just kind of worked my way up. I've been a few different places. I was a graduate assistant at Wayne State University. I worked for the Lions in their summer youth program since 2009. So yeah,
Go Lions.
it's been
Who influenced you along your way?
There's a lot of people. Like the guy, like I said, the guys that I played for, Richard Moore. My brother-in-law is now at Novi, Jim Sparks. Ironically, he like I said, he married my sister. He's the best man at my wedding. So just good people that made the experience what it was. It was really powerful. Yeah.
I love it. And what do you think, in your terms? You've obviously mentioned a lot of things, but what makes a great coach? I mean, there's coaches that win that I know aren't great coaches, right?
100%.
So what makes a great coach?
The ones who can get the most out of their players' ability to get them to reach their max. In my opinion, those are the best coaches. So if your max is you're only going to bench press 150 pounds and we're going to get you there, right? Like, to me, those are the ones who can inspire them to get to their highest level, the potential. Yep.
So how have you noticed anything different about the kids and their behavior, the people that you work with, the coaching, from when you started to now?
Yes and no. Like,
if certain things have gotten to them more.
Yeah, yes and no. I think, like, not that kids aren't as committed. I don't mean that, but there is just a lot more going on. You know what I'm saying? And I think sometimes we as a society go back to 2020 and use that as the excuse for everything. But there is some truth to that still. Like 2020, like, I still see the effects of it. Maybe the kids' behavior a little bit in class, even things like that at a private school and teaching there and stuff, right? Like, there's some challenges there. I just think kids deal with more. There's more on their plate than anything we could even think of.
Yeah, we've talked about that. It's like, I feel to thrive in this society, you have to be a deflector. Like, there's so much
there is
shit coming your way that it's the art of deflecting.
Not even the danger that comes on with all those apps and, like, the people that could be on, which are obvious, but just like what it's like for their brains to be thinking about what thousands of people think about them, because you're trying to get likes, right? So you're trying to fish, you're trying to get 5,000 followers or likes, whatever it is, right? So that means you're worried about 5,000 people's opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone, that exercise is something that couldn't even be fathomed when we were.
I was just talking to Quinn and Parker about this because I think I was joking with Brian on the way here. They're like, how many subscribers and how many likes? And, my little guy actually wants to start his own Instagram page with all his soccer stuff. And, there's a lot of kids around the world that have it, right? All this stuff. But that is a weird thing, right? I mean, I never dealt with that as an athlete. And I realized probably how detrimental it can be.
It can be. And I think, I think to some degree, we all are looking for validation of what we're doing now.
Sure.
Right? With what we post or what we're doing, we all kind of like what is our value? Right?
We're all kind of doing the same thing, and it's affecting us all in that way.
It is. Yeah. And I think so. I think one of the things that education in general, whatever type of school it is, doesn't do a good job of is talking to kids about self-esteem anymore. And like how valued they are, and that you don't need all that stuff, right? And like I said, to a degree, it's the same thing with us. Like, there are times I'll share something on social media. Oh, how many people like that? Or, oh, that's somebody new, or what, right? Exactly. I mean, we all kind of do. And going back to it, the part of the Be a Rock stuff is, like, I want people to recognize that they are valuable, right? And they need to realize that, and they don't need that validation, right? I
love that. That's exactly what I was telling my little guy. I was like, son, it doesn't matter. Whether they like you or love you, it doesn't affect you.
Right.
But I think it's just so wild, like this is an 8-year-old kid. I'm having these conversations, but prepared or, not prepared. So I guess you have to.
You have to.
I get it.
Yeah. Was there a specific instance of adversity or a difficult time in your life that kind of helped harden this, mind frame that you have?
Yeah.
Rock formation.
Absolutely. So, let's go back. So I mentioned I graduated high school in '96. I barely graduated high school, first of all.
Me too.
I wasn't. I was wasting away at Oakland Community College. Not very motivated to where my life was going. I was working at a local pizza joint. My girlfriend just broke up with me, right? There was all that going on. And then the summer of 1998, my dad got sick with cancer. and ended up passing away in November. And so I tell people though so I was going through all that, like that wasn't the hardest part, is his death, right? Because the whole circle of life thing, Lion King, great movie, right? You know, but that wasn't the hardest part. But when he had a couple different forms of cancer, and he was at the University of Michigan Hospital. And so from where I live, it's about a 45-minute drive out there. So I drove out there, and before I got into the room, my mom said, we were just told that, you know, it's terminal, he's not going to survive. So we knew that, but he didn't know yet. And so when I went in to see him, he said, hey, I need you to go to that RV shop on 13 Mile, you know, recreational, you know, the motorhome place, right? He's like, I need you to get me a bunch of brochures, because when we get out of here, I'm going to drive around the country with your mother. And I remember thinking like, oh, Dad, I got a lot going on today. You know, he's like, oh, it really mean a lot if you did this for me. Now, keep in mind, my mom was staying at the hospital with him. My older sister was married and moved out. My younger sister was staying with family. So I'm at my house by myself for that whole summer. Jeez. And so I drove, it was about an hour then. So I drove an hour to this RV shop and back, like 19 years old, knowing this entire time my dad would never get a chance to do that, right? And so looking back on that, that taught me that, like, I can get through anything. Right. Sure. And that's, you know, one of my key points to my Be a Rock presentations at the end is like, whatever you're going through, you get through it every time. Right. And so unless it's the ultimate final, like we die, but like that's where your faith has to come into play. And I'm not right. And I'm not
you're
telling,
even to a better place at that.
Yeah. And I'm not telling, right. But you have to have that faith component, and you believe that the unwavering belief that the best is yet to come. Right. And so that story, though, always is, to this day, is stuck with me. And so you mentioned the question, like, how do I find time to do this stuff? Is funny you brought that up, because driving back from Traverse City with my wife, I said to her, like, I know I'm busy, but like that still motivates me, right? Like that motivates me, that going through that experience, I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I think what I've learned in my life is, and shout out to my first coach, Sherry Swift, you know, she always said, the tougher the come through, the better the leader, you know, if you get through that. Yeah. So makes sense to, you know, kind of full circle. Now I know why you were there.
Right.
That's
100%.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good.
So when you're on the football field, football is dangerous. It's dangerous, even maybe more dangerous for younger people. Probably not, because they can't missile themselves like those guys. But
I've seen some good ways.
How do you kind of help them toe the line between being aggressive and being safe?
So the one good thing is about all the stuff that's come out over the years about concussions and CT and all that other stuff. And there's part of me that thinks some of that is a little bit over the top, but there's been a lot of rule changes in place. So to help mitigate that. So how long we can practice, how long we can hit or have collisions has been reduced over the years. The equipment has gotten better. And the techniques and how we teach blocking and tackling have evolved. So it's not anymore like back when we were in high school, right? Like put your face mask on the ball. Like that is out the door. Like nobody talks about that anymore. It's very similar to the rugby style tackle, or it's called the hawk tackle that the Seattle Seahawks were, they're the ones that really started and were made famous for. And so
what's that? Yeah, give me that.
Yeah, it's more so where we're not talking about head placement. Like, you don't talk about head placement at all. It's all about shoulder tackling, and you stare at the inside thigh or the near thigh of the guy you're tackling, and it's all shoulder tackle and the head's out of it. And after you get your arms around him and wrap, you're then going to roll. So like just imagine a rugby style type tackle. And so all those things have helped out. Like, and so I talk about that stuff at our parent meeting in the spring, right? So here's how the game, we've changed the game. We coach it safer. Here's how we're coaching your kids. So, you know, we have their safety in mind. And there's a big push. Like, I think one of the things at football that we need to do a better job of is similar. Like, I know soccer coaches in the state of Michigan and hockey coaches have to kind of go through a placement, like a level of certification and training to obtain licensing, right? Yep. And so in football, we're doing a little bit of that, but I think it should be more so, and I think it should be 100% required that everybody teaches blocking and tackling the same way.
Love it.
But I do think it's definitely a lot better, and people ask me, because I've had parents, you know, a lot of moms, you know, well, I don't want, you know, I said, okay, well, here, come to the meeting and just listen to me, and you're going to see, like the other part of it for us is we're not full gear every day in practice. Like, we'll be a lot shorts and shoulder pads, or a lot of times just in helmets. And going back to
Times have changed.
I mean, it's just and
Certainly,
it's
man.
not something I made up. Some coaching friends
sure.
have convinced me to do it, and wherever they learned it, I don't know, but I've bought into that, right? Because
Makes sense.
there is a thought process that kids have to be tough, right? And you got to get in hitting shape. I totally get that, but in my opinion, kids are tough when they know exactly where they're going and there's no hesitation, right? And they're fully confident doing what they're supposed to do, right? And you can do that in just helmets, tackling this hand shield and things like that. So,
and you're keeping the athlete ready for Friday.
and you're keeping them. The other thing I like is
you
kids
only
are
have so many turns on that dial.
kids are chomping at the bit come Friday because they have, like, well, coach, we hit harder in Little League. I'm like, well, then you better get after it Friday, right? You're gonna be ready to go,
that.
right?
Keep them hungry.
Yeah.
Do you ever have it where a kid gets injured and gets discouraged, and you kind of try and step in and mitigate that and keep them focused on whatever isn't football right now?
So one of the hardest things I've dealt with, at Bishop Foley, 2 seasons ago, as our second Prep Bowl championship, we had a 2-time All-State running back. As a 10th grader and 11th grader, he's now playing at Hope College. But week 2, he tore his ACL in a non-contact play. Week 2, and he was out. And he was out for the year. And he's actually, ironically, he's my nephew by marriage, and so we had a relationship already. And heartbreaking. So I told the team, though, I said, like, our expectations aren't changing. We're not changing who we are. Like, we're still going to come to practice tomorrow and get ready to go. We're going to support him however we can. We want him at practice. We want him, if he wants to help coach a position, if he wants to wear a headset on Friday night, all that stuff, just to support him and help make him be a part of it. And I know it was hard for him because he also lost his basketball season, and then also a little bit of his track season. And so going back to it, all right, like, what is one of the great things that football teaches you, or sports in general teaches, that life's not fair. Right? And so this was that moment where he didn't get to finish out the rest of his senior year because of an injury, but what an opportunity for him to learn and grow and become resilient, right, and tough-minded. And so now going forward, when he deals with stuff, he's going to be like,
for sure,
that's nothing.
Full recovery, and he's
good. Like I said, he's at
great,
Hope College
man.
right now. Got
How's
some
he
reps,
playing?
He got some reps. So he's a freshman, so he'll be all right.
Great,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
it means
cool.
a lot. I busted my stuff up a bunch of times, and it was always, it just, like, the first time it happened, I was just, like, out of school and my head was just out of my body, where I was just like, I was gone for 2 weeks, and I missed everything in school. I missed everything at football because, they had to do surgery and everything. So it's like, it's meaningful to people.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
I think you're doing a good job there, Brian, and I
Hey,
think
man,
you
I'm
should
trying.
keep it up.
What's been the biggest challenge? Obviously we've talked a lot of the wins. What's been your biggest coaching challenge?
Close us off with that.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. There's just one. I think,
Real leader there.
listen, I've had great parents everywhere I've gone, and it's even the great ones sometimes get like this. There is, unfortunately, sometimes an inflated belief of how good their kid is, right?
Sure.
And regardless of the sport, and a lot of it I don't think is their fault. If you pay money to play travel sports, there's almost like an expectation that, oh, my kid's a travel softball player, or baseball player, right? Or my kid worked out with so and so, or he's in this 7-on-7 league as a quarterback. And at the end of the day, like, that's all great, but can he get lined up and block and tackle and do what he's supposed to do on Friday night or on game day, right? I think that's been the biggest challenge. There's been an explosion of all those travel sports and 7-on-7s and stuff like that. And I know you're dealing with it probably at some point to soccer, right? And there's a need for it. I respect it and understand it, but I think there's the dangers that people get an inflated sense of how good they really are.
Do you think it's because the parent wants it more than the kid, or
So,
is
like,
it the...
like anything, how many times have a parent ruined an experience for kids? Like, I mean, I know that sounds.
I see it on
but
every
I know you
soccer
do.
field.
I know you do. I see it with
like-
my girls, like youth, CYO basketball still, and I just sit there and I'm just like, goodness.
How about some advice to the parent? How about that? How to be that rock for them and put them in a position to...
So, like I said, I have 3 teenage daughters who all are involved with sports, right? And they've played sports that I've been involved in to some degree, and that doesn't make me an expert. But there are times we talk about certain things, whether it be hitting the softball or whatever. I make sure that as soon as they get in the car, the first thing I say to them, though, is like, hey, I love you. I love watching you play.
Yeah.
That's the very first thing, right? Because how many kids get in the car and that's not what they hear, and they hear, "Why'd you miss that layup?" or "You didn't box out here," or "That official, what a bad call, that official, he was horrible," things like that. And it's just all the stuff that kids might not want to hear. Maybe they just want to sit down and get home and have dinner or talk to their boyfriend.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate you having
Thanks,
here.
Brian.
We'll see you guys next week.